Hey you guys, how you doing? Nice to see you again. It seems like 5 minutes since our last meeting a week ago, but time's going really fast, at least in my experience. I don't know if it's like that for you or not. Um, we got a lot of things going on. This is a situation that's happening in the world. I think they're calling it the pandemic, right? I would put that in quotes because even the official health agencies of the country where I'm sitting right now, the U.S., have downgraded the severity of the virus. They have forgot to mention that they made it in a lab and patented it and sent it off to China to be fixed up and then released it. No, that's kind of something they don't want to talk about, but they do talk about the fact that the death figures that were projected were completely off by huge amounts. The study that was referred to in a school in the UK, I forget, Imperial College or somewhere like that, was completely, junk science, the one they referred to. And they said, oh, sorry about the junk science thing. It's really not nearly as dangerous as that. But for your protection, even though it's turning out to be like a severe flu situation, and I'm talking about the current mutations of it, they're not testing for those in particular. They don't need to. They just say, well, test for the general type of generic virus, coronavirus. And since everybody's positive for that, almost everybody is positive for that, if you've ever had a cold or anything like of that nature, then it allows them to make the numbers explode, even though they've downgraded the death rate and the severity and the transmissibility and everything of this specific virus. And I actually don't know, excuse me, how they could even say anything about the numbers for the real virus, because it's mutated all over the place now, and they're not testing for those specific mutations as far as I know, and they're falsifying the death figures, and so they wouldn't need to do that if it was really a serious situation anyway. And what's really interesting is you notice the overall death rate for people dying in America and the world is really not much different than it is every year, but nobody's dying from anything except COVID-19 because they're just moving all the causes of death over to that one cause to make it look more impressive. And at least in America, and I know a lot of other parts of the world, the commentators on TV reading off their teleprompters are still reading that it's just really terrifying and everybody's going to die, and you can't escape except if you obey your rulers and wear a mask all the time. And hopefully even, I guess if you're a really diligent person trying to obey the authorities, maybe you wear the mask while you're sleeping and while you're exercising and hope that you don't have a heart attack. And because, see, the thing about the masks is they cut down your oxygen and they trap the CO2 that you're trying to expel, because that's a waste product of breathing, the one that's supposed to destroy the world because you're generating it. And Dr. Blaylock wrote a great article, which we posted recently on lostartsradio.com, why wearing masks is a really bad idea. And it's not healthy. Viruses go right through it, and it cuts down your oxygen, makes you more likely to get sick, negatively impacts your immune system. Things like that, but they're figuring, I think the rulers that are orchestrating all this stuff from behind the scenes, not the visible rulers, but the real ones higher up, have calculated that we're dumbed down enough now that we'll just fall for all this stuff and not even question it. And apparently, it looks like they're mostly right for most people, that they are. I've talked to a lot of people, and they're just so scared because they've been trained to believe the authority figures in general, but health authorities, more than anybody, which is kind of obvious because the health authorities have historically for the last 110 years or so been recommending these horrible procedures that make people sick and kill them, and people are so scared and reverent toward the health authorities that they just do these deadly treatments anyway, which are called standard of care, if you haven't heard of them before. and many of them are designed to cause health problems and, death and stuff like that. So it's a consciousness issue, and in my opinion, this is like a consciousness test for humanity. And the thing is that we're not supposed to know that it really wouldn't take that many of us being more self-aware and aware of the situation to turn it around, because if you're aware, you affect lots of other people around you, even when you're not saying anything, just because of your influence of being awake. You're never supposed to know about that. And so, we've got light versus dark, of course, which has been going that way on this planet probably since the beginning. And as I've said before, and a lot of people have totally disagreed with me vehemently about this, and some really vicious energy coming back, because I said that currently the president in the U.S., as well as the president in Brazil and some other places, has been really, a sincere person that was in that job because they actually wanted to help their country, and by example, the rest of the world, which I think is clear. And again, that's coming out because in the U.S., the president said, when they ran it on the media, that he said everybody was going to get the vaccine distributed, they had cut out the part where he said, and it's just for the people that want it, which of course he may not be able to really be in charge of, because the insane governors in different states can mandate it for their states, like they do for children going to school now in California and New York and Illinois and a lot of other places like that. So whether one guy can stand against that is highly doubtful. But if the population were to wake up, it would be a different situation, because he could be supported. Another thing he did just very recently in the last couple of days is, and I hope this holds and is true, I think it's true, we've seen numerous confirming articles about it, that the president of the U.S. said he was pulling out of the World Homicide Organization, the World Health Organization. And that would be spectacularly good. In fact, almost unbelievably good, because the heads of that organization are major, criminals, and we're supposed to follow them as above government. And in fact, that's not completely wrong, because when you sign up, when you're the president or prime minister, and you sign up as a member of the World Homicide Organization for your country, you have to do what they say. It's completely insane and suicidal, but almost all the countries in the world have done that, which shows you how completely unconscious or malevolent they are. And you're not allowed to question the WHO no matter what you do. In fact, our social media has said, just to keep us protected from ideas they don't agree with, anybody that disagrees with what WHO said needs to be banned off social media, and they're doing it on a large scale. The other thing is that in the US, the president recently signed an executive order which is designed to break up the censorship power of the social media. That's another incredible thing. It's taken 4 years. He should have done it on the first day, which is a major failing, but it's still incredible that it's being done. This is not the action of, what do they call it, controlled opposition. It's not like that. It's not the action of somebody who's in it for their own money and their own ego and to do bad things to everybody. You don't question the WHO and organizations like that if you're worried about your own personal success and safety, trying to please the negative rulers. So it's down to the point, though, even with those good actions, that the states and some of the cities like Chicago and other places, states of Michigan, California, New York, they're acting so maliciously insane at this point that even while the virus gets downgraded in intensity by CDC, another criminal organization, but even their fake numbers are showing it's not that dangerous. The states and the cities are saying, we don't care about that. That's irrelevant. We've got a chance to enslave you and imprison you in your house indefinitely and start tracking you. They've got all these contact tracers, like a new Stasi coming out, and it looks like, politically at least, the last hope for resisting these things in the U.S. at least, could be the sheriffs, the county sheriffs. And the question is, how many of those are even aware of what their real job is? So I thought, all right, who could we talk to about that and look for examples of sheriffs that are really doing their job correctly? And obviously, the person that came to mind right away was Sheriff Richard Mack. And I called him up and said, would you be willing to come on and talk to us on the live show about this whole issue and whether the sheriffs have a chance to actually help us with this? And he said, yeah, he would. So I'm going to try with my great technological expertise now to add him to the show. Okay, are you there, Richard?
I am.
Okay, sorry about that. For anybody that missed it, we were just talking about the situation where some positive things are happening, but there are states and local places in the U.S. and a lot of places around the world that even though the virus has been verified to be a lot less deadly and less problematic than we were originally told, a lot of these local places and some countries are just saying, well, we don't care. We're just going to tighten the restrictions and the house arrest and everything anyway, and just keep going. And so in the U.S., my thought was that the last hope for stopping that and reversing it and preventing it from taking effect, and all these contract tracers from going into your house and seeing if they need to kidnap your children for their own safety, is really the county sheriffs. Yeah. And hopefully some kind of equivalent to that in other parts of the world. But I wanted to get Sheriff Richard Mack's input on that. And so that's what we've been talking about. If you've missed it, we'll do a quick recap of what he was saying right now. So go ahead, Richard.
Well, there's so many different rumors and suggestions and contradictions and huge contradictions in the medical field. I think you and I have mentioned those every time we've done a show.
Yeah.
And but the way it seems to me to this point is that truth is stranger than fiction, and you couldn't write this script if you were Alfred Hitchcock, because this is just strange and crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And right. I think Orwell is looking like a genius more and more as we go along through this. But I said that before the coronavirus pandemic. And so I have called this a farce, but I do not call coronavirus a farce. I believe that disease does exist.
Yeah.
How and why might still bring out some other arguments, but I believe it's there, and I believe it's been overplayed, and I believe that there should be criminal investigations into the CDC and WHO, primarily because CDC asked hospitals and states to inflate their numbers, and Governor Inslee in Washington State purposely was making sure that the numbers were inflated. Mm-hmm. And you have to ask, why would they want to inflate the numbers of people dying from this disease? And you can only come up with one conclusion on that, and that is they want control, they want freedom and our Constitution diminished or utterly destroyed, so that they can do the promise of one Barack Obama and other politicians in this country who have promised to fundamentally change America. And I'll be damned, they sure are.
Yeah. Quickly, and the recent part has been very rapid as well.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, look what's happened just in the last 2.5 months.
Yeah.
I mean, for God's sake. And again, we can't even agree as a country and as a government, as a people and government officials. We cannot even agree on one basic fundamental principle and tenet of this country, of this constitutional republic, and that is religious liberty. I
Right.
never thought I'd see the day where we couldn't agree on at least one principle that would be held sacred and that we would never violate. And now we have the United States Supreme Court with Chief Justice, liberal leftist supporter of tyrants, John Roberts, siding with the four extremist liberals on the court. And he basically said, who are we to interfere with the medical profession in saying what we should do?
Right.
It wasn't talking about the medical profession. It's talking about the governor. It's talking about the states. It's talking about, can they shut down liberty for any excuse, not just the coronavirus or any other disease? Because and if they would just read Supreme Court decisions and read the Mack Prince case, they would see that this has already been decided that they can't do this.
Right. Well, when I think part of the problem is when a president or somebody on behalf of a country joins the WHO, part of the agreement is if the WHO decides to declare a high enough level pandemic emergency, then they become the government of the country. Right.
Well, they've done that with the United Nations for a long time, and
yeah,
that's why so many people have advocated getting out of the United Nations. And I say get rid of both of them.
Definitely, and I don't see that how could it be legal for anybody to make an agreement with a supranational agency that they can take over your government by declaring an emergency?
Oh, yeah.
I don't see how that can be done.
Right. It's way outside national sovereignty and state sovereignty. Right. But why do they need to worry about the CDC or WHO doing it? Because we have so many governors doing it on their own.
Yeah, they seem to be having a good time. I mean, some of them look completely crazed. I don't know what that is. They look possessed to me.
From Governor Newsom in California, absolutely.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's like there's a contest going on between Newsom and Whitmer and these other people that are trying to be the most insane.
Right.
I don't know who wins, but that kind of leads us to the point where if the governors can't be trusted to be to follow the Constitution and we have rights that aren't even in the Constitution, and if they don't respect those, then you pretty quickly get down to whether or not the sheriff will help.
Yeah, I pray that the sheriffs will be standing strong. This Supreme Court decision might embolden some of the less constitutional sheriffs that we've seen commit acts of tyranny in support of their governors.
Yeah.
And some of them, I'm sure now, the Sheriff Cronister in Florida is going, yeah, see, I did the right thing because I arrested Pastor Rodney Howard Brown.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, I'm sure he's going to feel emboldened, and I hope that any of the sheriffs on the fence will see that still freedom is there. But, there's so many sheriffs and peace officers in this country that blindly follow the Supreme Court. And I wish they would read my decision. It still amazes me how sheriffs in this country won't read a decision, but was the only one in American history that's done by sheriffs. I get pretty frustrated about that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So there is one point I wanted to bring up from the case. Can we go through that real quick?
I'd like to. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I told you that there was a lot of principles involved in this thing. And one of them actually happened at the district court. Now, this is a very historical district court. It's in Tucson, Arizona, and the chief justice of the district court in Tucson was a man by the name of John M. Roll, R-O-L-L. And he was really a good man, and my attorney actually judge shocked, because a different judge was supposed to hear it, and then when he went to file, he said, "Oh, I forgot some other paperwork. I'll be back." So he came back the next day, and we got the judge we wanted. And that was John Roll.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to skip forward about 14, 15, 16 years to when he was murdered. John M. Roll was a real pain in the side of the Obama administration. And on January 8th, 2011, he was murdered at the Safeway parking lot when Congresswoman Gabby Giffords was shot. And
Mm-hmm.
6 other people were killed, including a 6-year-old girl. And I believe that John Roll was the second one killed. And that really affected me. I was actually speaking in Beaumont, California, and a person in the audience raised his hand and said, when I was talking about my Supreme Court case,
Mm-hmm.
he raised his hand and he said, "Didn't you know that John Roll was murdered this morning?" And that's how I found out. That's literally
wow. Right in the
And-
middle of a talk.
And this man changed my life. He interposed on my behalf all the way through this. Every pretrial motion he sided with us, and that's usually unheard of. All the shenanigans that Janet Reno pulled to try to remove me from the case,
Mm-hmm.
he countered her every time,
Wow.
and he stood with me. And literally, he changed my life, and because of his courage and his forthrightness and his constitutional propriety, I won. Now, he said something that happened in court, and I want everybody to remember this. This was the only place that any of us sheriffs took the stand. I was actually testifying in Tucson in his courtroom, and I felt a little bit uncomfortable. I'd been on numerous trials in my 20-year career. I'd say hundreds, and I'm sure it's at least hundreds. 5, 6, 7, 800 times I've been to court, traffic, you name it, and I was pretty nervous on this one. There was a lot of press there. There was a big group of media talking to me beforehand and afterwards, and I was nervous. And there was so much writing on this. Well, anyway, there was an attorney for the federal government that was asking me questions, and all of a sudden she stopped asking me questions and did something that was a violation of courtroom protocol. She started giving witness testimony herself. She turned to the judge and started telling him, "Well, Your Honor, the first 4 months of the implementation of the Brady Bill background checks has denied over 250,000 felons nationwide access to firearms." And first, that was a complete lie. Do you really think we have 250,000 felons on the streets of America? You got to say, why are they all on the street? And that they all went into a gun shop and filled out the paperwork to try to buy a gun.
Right.
Ridiculous. No, because it says, "Are you a felon? Are you wanted?" on the form that you have to fill out. And supposedly of those 250,000, they only arrested 4. So anyway, it was a farce. It was all lies. But anyway, I was wondering why my attorney wasn't objecting to what she was doing, but he let her have enough rope where she hung herself. And Judge Roll put his hand up and even pointed his finger at her and said, "Counselor, do not try to pretend in this courtroom that your statistical analysis somehow equates to constitutionality." Oh my goodness.
Wow, that's a deep concept for a judge
It
to have.
is,
That's pretty good.
What do people keep trying to do in order for us to violate our Constitution, suspend our freedoms, suspend our God-given rights? What do people want to do? They want to talk about how advantageous it is if we shut down, if we self-quarantine, if we wear masks, if we stay away from other people, if we don't shake hands, if we have interaction with our grandchildren or anybody else. If we cut ourselves off from society, then we will not get this disease. And so they talk about the benefits or the burdens and how it helps. And this is the key point here. It doesn't matter. In fact, I was just on a little over a week ago with Charlene Bollinger. I don't know if you know her.
I do.
Yeah.
That's Ty's wife, right?
She and her husband both are very much into educating the world on the dangers of vaccinations. And she tried to get me going on how dangerous these vaccinations are. And I don't know which one it was. I really don't care. And I told her, I don't care, Charlene. I don't care how bad vaccines are. I'm sure they are. But that's not my point, and that's not why I'm here.
Right.
No matter how dangerous these are, you still can't shut down my country and stop me from being a free man. You cannot shut down my liberty, whether they're dangerous, whether they're good. And I said, weighing the burdens or benefits is not necessary. And that's exactly what Scalia said in this decision. And I don't know if he got this from Judge Roll on the first one when he said, your statistical analysis doesn't equate to constitutionality. I wish he had used that language. But this is what he said, and this is the order. This is the order of the court. And I want to read this part.
Yeah, go ahead.
We held in New York. That's the New York versus United States case. Congress cannot compel the states to enact or enforce a federal regulatory program. Oh, I love that. That's powerful. Today we hold that Congress cannot circumvent that prohibition by conscripting state officers, the sheriffs, directly. The federal government may neither issue directives requiring the states to address particular problems, nor command the state's officers or those of their political subdivisions to administer or enforce a federal regulatory program. And here's where it gets really powerful. It matters not whether policy making is involved, and no case-by-case weighing of the burdens or benefits is necessary. Such commands are fundamentally incompatible with our constitutional system of dual sovereignty, end quote. My friends, do not get drawn in to the debate issue of like gun control. Well, gun control keeps us safer. I keep telling people, I don't care about your crime rates or your statistics regarding crime rates where guns are allowed or not allowed. I don't care. Gun control is against the law no matter how many statistics you show me about crime or the lack of crime. I tell that to both sides.
Yeah.
You mean if gun control keeps me safer, then I can keep my rights. If it's not, then I can't? No.
Yeah, well, and it is exactly what's being done with the pandemic. They're saying that because there's a certain death rate from the virus, that means that obviously you have to give up your rights.
Oh,
and
yeah, of course.
Right. It comes down to the word unalienable.
Yeah, and I call it unalienable.
Unalienable, sorry.
Unalienable. It cannot be leaned.
Right, and that means there was a funny cartoon that showed the signers of the Constitution sitting around, and one of them said they just finished signing, and they said, obviously this is all a moot point if there's an emergency, right? Yeah, you know, like we're just going to cancel all of it. Yeah. So that's not true. So if that's the case, and I think it is, that unalienable is I said it correctly this time, right?
Yeah, you did. Very good.
Unalienable means unconditional, and your rights can never be taken away by any human or government or organization or WHO or anybody, UN or anybody like that. Then what's the reasoning to explain to somebody who thinks that's only reasonable with a low death rate or small problems from guns or things like that? What they understood something about the importance of freedom and what happens if it's lost that was more important than any death rate in a pandemic, right? And how would you explain that?
Yeah, well, I hope by just returning to this and discussing this, because freedom is not based on statistics. It's not based on the weighing of burdens or benefits of a law. If the law only has to prove that it provides some benefit, then we're all dead in the water because anybody can manipulate and lie about statistics,
Right.
and they do all the time.
And
And
if
we,
you put everybody in prison, it is safer.
oh yeah, 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 but you can always still get any street drug inside any of those prisons. So
Yeah, yeah,
if you're
exactly.
an addict, that's the place to go. Go to
There's
prison. Still get
there's no automobile accidents if they're all in jail. You
right.
can't drive. So, um, and there are some sheriffs that have demonstrated they understand that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right now.
And I sure hope the sheriffs keep going. I get comments from sheriffs all the time. In fact, it was Sheriff Darleaf who texted me this morning and told me about Justice Roberts's horrible decision. And the article actually said Roberts joins the liberals on the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
You remember when he did that the first time, right?
What was the issue? I don't remember.
It was Obamacare.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he sided with the liberals on that one too. And what a shame. We had such hope for him that he was going to be a staunch constitutional guard. And his excuse for this one was just so flimsy. We can't argue with the medical field.
Well, yeah, that's the belief
just,
that everybody's supposed to have.
That's your job. You know what? You're supposed to decide the legality of an issue, the constitutionality of an issue. It doesn't matter who brought it forward. Well, I can't argue with the medical field, but I can,
So do you think that he really can't understand that, or what's going on?
Oh no, he knows. Somebody's got to him. Just like when he did Obamacare, it was so obvious that he could not make a legal point about it. He could not make a lawful or rule of law point about it. He declared in that particular case, he declared that if Obamacare was a tax, it is constitutional. Well, he can't make a law a tax because Congress said it was not a tax. So the only thing Roberts could do at that point was refer it back to Congress. This can be constitutional if you declare it to be a tax lawfully. But if it's not a tax, then it's unlawful. He literally declared it constitutional because it is a tax.
Right, and besides, the only federal tax that's really legitimate is something that taxes every person the same amount.
Right.
Right, so it wouldn't have passed that way either.
But an income tax is not constitutional. Never would have.
No, because it's graduated. It's a major platform of the Communist Party.
Right.
So,
so back to this one other point from the decision that we never got to last time. This really, to me, it's like Scalia is writing a constitutional equation, maybe a political equation, a political science equation, because he really says something powerful here also. A lot of people don't get this, especially the federal government, and most people don't understand. Just kind of like what Robert said today. The federal government can do whatever it wants. Congress can do whatever it wants. The governors can do whatever they want.
Right.
As long as it's a good reason. As long as they have a good reason for it, then they can do whatever they want.
Well, if they think it's a good reason, then it's defined as a good reason.
And then again, our freedom is dead.
Right. That's why, Whitmer decided in her state that it was to fight the virus, nobody should buy garden seeds. It's really important.
Or mow their lawn, or go across town to go see somebody, or to go to your other home. If you have your homes, you can't go to your other home. And she took a lot of heat this past week because her husband dropped her name because he wanted to get his boat in the lake. Oh my God, what a joke! Anyway, Scalia actually takes us through a history lesson of how impotent and small and powerless the federal government is supposed to be. You believe this? He says, Residual state sovereignty was also implicit, of course, in the Constitution's conferral upon Congress, get this, of not all governmental powers. Wow. Our federal government, according to this case, according to Justice Scalia in the Supreme Court, does not have all governmental powers. And so let's ask. Let's ask Scalia and let's ask this decision. Well, what kind of powers do they have then? Get this. But only discrete enumerated ones. Only.
Right.
Discrete and enumerated. Enumerated means they're numbered.
Yeah, there's a list. Right.
This and this. And so what an astonishing ruling this is. And so then he even goes, how do we keep them? Small and discrete and enumerated. That's another question we've always had. Well, he answers that too. He says, which implication was rendered express by the 10th Amendment's assertion. In other words, the 10th Amendment must be asserted. Oh, okay. Who's supposed to assert the 10th Amendment? Well, that would be the states. It even mentions the states, but it's also the people. And I really hope the people will take that seriously.
So most of these agencies, like the gigantic national health agencies, are illegal for existing. Because if the federal government can't control that itself in the enumerated powers, it can't make an agency to do it on its behalf. That wouldn't work, right?
No.
But the guarantees in the Constitution, if they were ever followed, of what the federal government cannot do, tell me if you agree, but I don't think those protect anybody from insane governors over the states and legislatures.
Well, I tend to take a little bit of a different stance on that.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. The ultimate purpose of all government is to protect liberty.
Yeah.
If a president, and I can give you one historical time when this happened, think of when a governor or a president actually stood against some governors, and especially one in Alabama. I may have given it away. But yes, and in fact, right now, in this particular case, he quotes the 10th Amendment. And so this is a time when governors didn't do it in this particular case, but sheriffs did. We did the bidding that the states were supposed to do in telling the federal government to stay out. Okay, but there's such political partisanship on that they won't do it. You know, the Democrat governors will tell the Republican president to stay out and vice versa. But no, they won't tell their own. A Democrat governor will not tell President Obama or a Democrat to stay out and leave us alone. Now it's all become so partisan, and the Supreme Court has become so partisan that we get this decision, in my case, 5-4 split. 5 Republicans sided with me, 4 Democrats against me. Now we got it today where one lone traitor, Justice Roberts, sided with the liberals, and it doesn't make any sense. But what the liberals did doesn't make any sense on this either. So this bears repeating. So what kind of powers does the federal government have? Discrete and enumerated. How do we keep them that way? By asserting the 10th Amendment. And who asserts the 10th Amendment? The states, the governors, the mayors, and the sheriffs. And then finally, how do we maintain liberty in America? Well, this is why I say it has happened very seldom, but I will support this. Let's say that your God-given rights are being trampled upon by your state, and your sheriff doesn't step in to save you. Nobody else in the state steps in to save you. Do you hope the president steps in to save you?
No, the president's actually under the states.
But do you hope he tries to save you? See, and I'm going to say absolutely yes. I don't
Well,
care who saves me.
you would
Save
like
me.
it, yeah, if it
Yeah,
worked,
I
sure,
would.
sure.
So this is what happened. Remember who did it in the 60s?
No, what was it?
John F. Kennedy sent in troops, sent in the National Guard to get in the front, get in the way of Governor Wallace stopping blacks from going to the
Okay,
University of Alabama.
right,
And
I do remember
for
that.
me, I'm going to tell you, for this state sovereignty guy, for this state's rights guy, that's my specialty. I'm glad he did it
Yeah.
because it was one thing. Now remember, the purpose of all government is to promote and secure liberty, and
Well,
that's what JFK did.
remember the recent, we're going to have you come back next week if you happen to have time, because we've got a lot more to talk about.
Oh yeah,
But remember, there was, speaking of encouraging things that Trump has been doing lately, he said that if the states wouldn't allow the churches to open up, he would overrule the governors. And it
yeah.
was an exact example of what you're talking about, because he's referring to the First Amendment that guarantees religious freedom, that, you know, that can't be blocked. And if the governors are going to
I don't
block
believe
it,
the
he's,
governors. I don't believe any of the governors in any of the states has the right to do that, and it should be the sheriffs doing that and stopping it. But if the president has to issue a warning, and he was probably bluffing on this one actually, but if he has to issue a warning and make that clear,
yeah,
I hope he does it again. I hope he comes out and says, everybody, I don't care what the Supreme Court said. You need to go to back to, if you want to go back to church, that's your individual right.
yeah. And now, where did the contact tracers come from, do you think? Is that,
Oh,
would you call, that's federal, basically, right?
well, it seems like it, but I don't, there's not enough people to do that. I mean,
Well,
how many millions of people would they have to
you know, that bill that just happened to be number 6666.
Yeah.
Amazing coincidence, that bill asked for $100 billion to fund that program. That will hire quite a few people.
Well, I'll do it for $1 billion.
You still got a chance to put in a proposal, but you know, I think what they're talking about, that was a bill that was submitted to the Congress on the federal level. So if the Congress says, okay, you can have $100 billion, and that was just for 2020, if I understand it right.
Well, I'm telling you right now, we've got to get this to our sheriffs, and I've got so much work to do. And I wish, there's a lot of people trying to help me, and I really appreciate it. I'm on a committee with Dr. Batar and Dr. Ed Group and the Bollingers, and there's several more on there. But Dr. Bush, you know Dr. Bush from Hawaii? I can't remember his name. I think
no,
he would.
I've heard of him, but I don't know him.
But anyway, he's on the committee, and they're trying to get something going on this.
Okay.
And all of them believe that the best recourse is a constitutional sheriff in a lot of these problems.
Yeah.
And it's obvious that it is because we're actually seeing dozens and maybe even now hundreds of sheriffs that are standing for liberty all across America.
Yeah.
And we have them doing it in California. And
I think they need to, because the sequence that they have in mind is the contact tracers come to visit you and say, how are you, and take your temperature and tell you who in your family is positive and has to be kidnapped.
Well, I'm sure they're going to be real nice about it until it comes time to, yes, you will submit.
It's already been talked about that the people who don't want to talk to the contact tracers will be referred back to the supervisors in a different approach, more forceful. So there's going to be some work for the sheriffs if they're willing to do it.
Yeah, I'm sure some of them were. I've already talked to some about this, but we've really got to get this out there more. And I believe that they've already announced that Apple and AT&T have said that you can put these contact tracers apps on your phones. And so, my little flip phone will not take an app.
Yeah, that's good.
And if it does, and if they try to do anything else with tracing, I will throw this and I will try to get a pager. If not, then we're going to just have to find another way to communicate, because I will not do it.
Yeah, the questions are really coming up now. And if you think you might be able to come on next week at the same time, then I think what we should focus on is what do you do and all the aspects of it when they come to your door.
Right.
And they're going to start by the testing, which nobody should take because the tests, first of all, some of the tests have been contaminated and they're full of false positives. But the testing will be used as a justification to implement forced procedures against you, vaccines or relocation or anything they want to do.
So I can give you a quick answer. Where the Fifth Amendment says you have a right to remain silent, if any of these people identify themselves and trying to perform any medical test on you, close the door and walk away. And the sooner you do that, the better off you're going to be, because then they won't be able to say, well, I gave them a choice and they shut the door in my face and told me to get the hell off their property. Yeah. No, you don't want them to be able to say that they gave you anything. So at the very beginning, you're going to need to do that. But I do want to talk about that a lot more. And I do want to look at two different issues, which we've discussed a little bit, but they go hand in hand with this. And that is those contact tracers are going to be the one to make sure that you're getting the vaccination.
That's right.
And then, you see, but I still maintain, I don't care how many billions they pay on this. I just don't believe there's enough people that they could hire to do this. I don't see how they could do that in every city, in every county, in every neighborhood, every home. And I understand they do have the census, but now a lot of the census is done online. Yeah. So if they want to try to do this to me online, well,
no, they won't do that. The health authorities have said that with all the people who just happen to be unemployed because of the terrible virus, not the lockdowns or anything, that they'll use the unemployed people who will be glad to have a job as a contact tracer. And they're hoping that's going to work. But we should talk about it. Any chance that you can come and join us next Saturday, do you think?
I think so. I might be in Austin, Texas. My son's having a very serious, I can't remember the disease that he has. And I'm not even sure it's a disease. Anyway, he has a hole in his the side of his bladder or something that has to be repaired. And oh gosh, I can't remember the name. It's really a big long name.
Okay, that's all right.
He's told me the name a few times, but I can't remember it. But anyway, my wife's already there helping him, and when he actually goes in for surgery, he's actually having surgery. He lives in Austin, but he's having surgery in Houston. So his wife's going to be taking him, and we're going to take care of the dogs and the kids.
Okay, great.
And so I want to be with my wife to help her out with that. But I'm sure I can do the show from there.
Okay, yeah, I think it's important right now. Our time is running quickly, and before they get too far along with the in-house visits, we need to talk about it.
Yeah.
So, okay, and how do people support what you're doing real quick? We've got like 1 minute left.
Well, we really need the donations. I really wish that I could do this full time.
Yes, me too.
I really need to get out of my teaching job. And if the money were here where I could just really do that, I would do it tomorrow.
And they donate on your website? Is that where they donate?
Well, everybody can donate at cspoa.org. cspoa.org. Please donate, become a member,
okay,
and help this movement. Please be a part of this.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be just sheriffs. It can be police officers that decide to take the same spirit, I would imagine.
And citizens.
Anybody can be a member.
Everybody can, and it's a partnership. This whole organization is a partnership with the people and the sheriffs and peace officers. Yeah,
okay. Well, next Saturday is going to be here in 5 minutes, so I hope we'll be back together to finish the discussion, or at least do the next stage of it.
Thanks so much, Richard.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Richard. Okay, you guys, I'm sorry we messed up the initial second 10 minutes of this hour. It went by really fast. That was my fault, technically, and I apologize. But I think Sheriff Mack will be back next week. Support our work if you can. We're shadow banned everywhere, and I've seen our view counters go backwards. I don't think we're getting negative views on our videos, but we need funds from anybody who can afford to keep us going at lostartsradio.com or lostartsresearchinstitute.org. They both have donate buttons, or subscribestar.com/lostartsradio. And if you want to get more deeply into this in a format that's not subject to censorship or shadow banning or anything like that, look at Planetary Healing Club. We talk about all this stuff in more depth there, including the health research I've been doing for the last half century, and the real health information that's violently suppressed in this country and most of the world at this point. That's planetaryhealingclub.com. And if you want to be on our mailing list so that we can stay in touch with you regardless of what happens, go to lostartsradio.com and look for the mailing list sign-up sheet. You just need a name and an email address, or send it to info@lostartsradio.com. What else do I need to tell you? The Sunday shows are continuing. They're free and public tomorrow night and every Sunday after this, as long as we can. Really inspiring educational guests. We're still interviewing those every week. Any kind of feedback or questions or anything that you want to communicate with us on, just send me an email at richard@lostartsradio.com. We read all of them and respond as possible. I think that's most of it. Again, the deeper aspects are at planetaryhealingclub.com. That's for information that we can discuss in a completely uncensored atmosphere. And I think that's the main thing. Thanks for spending the time with us. It went fast. I'll try to be more technically adept next time and not cut out any of the stream, but hopefully you got enough of it to complete the picture that Sheriff Mack was giving today. And next time we'll get together and talk about what are the positive options that you've got when the enforcers come to your door of the contact tracers and other people to take care of you in ways that you may not appreciate. So anyway, thanks for being with us. I really am grateful that you help us keep on the air and are doing the show with us. And take care of yourself and your family and your friends, and especially take care of yourself. It makes you more able to make a good contribution in all the other ways you're working in the world. And we'll see you next time. I'll meet you here. Thanks.